There
There
we
we
go.
go.
So we missed that beginning part, but that's okay. I in before I digress too much, Scott, one of the things that I like about groups, or this group, is we all have value. We 90% of everybody I've met is very interested in what they do, but they're also interested in what you do, you being all of us. Um, in hearing your story, yeah, it's one of the things I saw a lot of after Vietnam. Guys that were young boys went in to serve their country, fighting in a very unpopular war. The only physical fight I got into with my best friend in high school was over the Vietnam War. And I handled aviation ordnance, and that I worked on miniguns and Vulcans. And that when I got out, it was very difficult. The Whether I was too naive or the programs were not out there, I was not consciously aware of anything other than going back to college and using my VA loan to try to develop some sort of a career. I wasn't going to be, work doing things with ordnance and bombs. You could work for the mafia or the police department, and neither one really interested me. Um, I thought I was being really smart when I signed up at 17, that I was going to fool that Marine Corps recruiter and get a guarantee. I thought being a jet mechanic would really be a cool job, future wise. So I got a guarantee in aviation, which turned into being trained how to load bombs. Um, you were an aviator. You were the guy flying the planes I was putting the ordnance on. Um, I'm going to let you take it from here and
Sure.
talk about this transition process. Because I think the boxes are all
I
different,
need a
but the
booby.
same. Kim, mute yourself, hon.
Oh,
Um, but Scott, I'm going to let you take it from here and talk about this because I think we all have something that we can learn from this.
Great. Thanks, Mac. One, appreciate you having me on today. And I know I met most of you at Achieve in October in Denver. So nice to see you all again. And if I haven't met you yet, as Mac said, my name is Scott Bell. And kind of like Mac, young kid, fresh out of high school, enlisted in the Navy. And I spent 3 years on an aircraft carrier and got out because I just can't do a career in the Navy. It's just not for me. But if I am going to do a career, I have to have a commission and I have to fly. Those were my two requirements. And so I spent 5 years in the reserves. I worked for my dad as an automotive mechanic for about a year and decided it's probably time to go back to college. Because I swore I was never going to go to college in the first place. So I never took the SAT, I never took the ACT, but I went to college. I was going to be a civil engineer. And then I met Calc 3, and Calc 3 told me not once, but twice, you're a failure. You're not going to be an engineer. So during my reserve duty, I was out in Fallon, Nevada, out in the middle of the desert. And I was just standing outside my room and I was watching F-14s in the bounce pattern, doing touch and goes. And I just thought, flying would be pretty cool. I came home, talked to a recruiter. A year and a half later, down in Pensacola, getting screamed at by Staff Sergeant Wilson, United States Marine Corps, who was my drill instructor, and then went off and flew helicopters for 14 years. I did some staff work, got back here to Colorado, where my wife and I are both originally from, and then it was time for that tour to be up. But I knew once I got Jackie back here to Colorado that she wasn't going to move again. So I had to do something to ensure that I stayed in Colorado. So I kind of did a drug deal with the detailer, who's our job placement officer. And I said, I will take the hardest job you got, but you're going to get me back to Colorado Springs when you're done. And he said, okay, well, that's going to be pretty tough. And I said, well, I really don't think so because there's a guy that I want to replace at the Air Force Academy that teaches history. And if I go and take this job, I think the timing's going to work out just perfectly. And oh, by the way, I'm interviewing for the job next Thursday. And he said, okay, let me know how the job goes or how the interview goes. So I actually went to Djibouti, Africa, which, if you've never been to Djibouti, I recommend don't. It's known as the hottest inhabited place on the face of the earth. And that just means that there are hotter places, just nobody's going to live there. So I went to Djibouti and I was the inspector general over there for the command. I came back and I taught at the Air Force Academy uh, outside of the cockpit. Best tour I had in the Navy. I taught introduction to military history for 3.5 years. And then I got hired to run all of the leadership development programs for the Air Force Academy as a Navy guy. And I did that for a year. I worked in the Center for Character and Leadership Development and just really fell in love with helping people become better versions of themselves and developing from being a follower all the way up to being a leader of men and women. And then it came time to retire. And honestly, when it was time to retire, I was 100% ready. A lot of people spend months and months cleaning out their closet. My ceremony was on Friday. Closet was cleaned out on Saturday. And I've only put the nation's cloth back on for very few limited times. A couple were to commission former students of mine, which is an amazing opportunity to do. One was for my father's memorial service, and then just some other military style events that I wore my mess dress for. But other than that, never looked back. Never reached down in my flight suit to grab my cover to put it on my head. I was done. And I thought, as a retired O5 with a top secret SCI, which is a special compartmentalization instruction clearance, outside of the Beltway in DC, probably in one of the defense contractor capitals in the nation here in Colorado Springs. And I was going to land a job like that. No, it doesn't happen that way. And I came to a realization over quite a few months that I wasn't special. I might be unique, but I'm not special. Just because I'm a retired O5 and I've got one of the most highest clearances that you could have, that a whole lot of people didn't want me. And after having a very successful Navy career, sending out over 90 targeted resumes and not receiving one phone call was a huge kick to the gut. And everybody told my wife, after 31 and a half years in the service, he's probably going to go through depression. He might start drinking too much. He might do this. He might do this. And I'm like, have you met me? There's absolutely no way that I am ever going to get depressed. And oh, by the way, I have high blood pressure. So by doctor's recommendation, I have to drink one glass of red wine every night. The only problem was he didn't say how small or big the glass of wine had to be. So one glass turned into two, two turned into three, three turned into four. And if you know anything about wine, that's a bottle by myself every night. And when your wife of now 33 years, at the time it was about 23 years, really questions your drinking, that kind of opened your eyes a little bit. But nothing will open your eyes more than when your children tell you you're drinking too much. And that was an eye opener. And that was the catalyst that got me out from behind the computer, got me out of what we affectionately call our bunny slippers, where you think standing by and just sending out resumes is going to land you a gig. It doesn't work that way, especially here in Colorado Springs. I swear that Kevin Bacon lives here because everybody knows everybody here in Colorado Springs. And I started just getting out and putting myself out there. I started coaching swimming at Lifetime Fitness. I was a competitive swimmer and triathlete. And so it gave me something to do. It was an hour and a half a day, but I was doing something. And then my son got into swimming in high school. I was coaching him at Lifetime. He got into swimming in high school. And at his freshman um, end of the season banquet, the coach came up to me and kind of jokingly says, "Hey, you're not doing anything. You want to come help me coach next year?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute, you're going to pay me to yell at teenagers, including my son? Sure, I'll go on." So I started coaching high school swimming. Really phenomenal. I coached both the boys and the girls team, which is, if you know anything about coaching young teenagers, you cannot coach girls the same way you coach boys. It's a completely different dynamic. But really had a lot of success there, and really enjoyed it. And during a practice one time, this young lady who really wanted the 50 freestyle swimming record, she was doing flip turns. And so I was watching her do flip turns and just trying to, because if you know anything about swimming, the 50 is there and back. That's it. You're going to win it or lose it on the start and the turn. So I wanted to help her get her flip turns more efficient. And she stopped and looked up at me, and she's like, "What's going on, coach?" And then I saw the name, the last name on the back of on her cap. And I looked at her and I said, "Is your dad Rooster?" And she goes, "What?" Because her last name was Osterroos. And so her dad's call sign was Rooster. So Rooster and I go out and we have lunch. And Rooster asks me what I'm doing. I'm like, "Coaching swimming." And then, Rooster tried to introduce me to some folks. And that was kind of my first small taste of networking, and using Rooster's connections to help me get introduced to other people. Fast forward to back to school night, right before my son started his sophomore year. I'm walking down the hallway, and Lisa Mays is walking the other direction. And Lisa's like, "Hey, are you still looking for a job?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Send me your resume tonight. The job goes public tomorrow, and I want to make sure I get your resume in front of everybody else." I'm like, "Great. What?" I don't even know what the job is for. I don't target a resume. I just send her my generic resume because I really don't know what it's for. Well, it turned out to be a job with a company called Convergent Performance here in Colorado Springs, and they were getting ready to do leadership development with a little company called United Airlines to all 12,500 of their pilots, doing a 1 day seminar, where I got to teach leadership development to one of the largest airlines in the world. Um, but if I would have just said, "No, I'm good," nothing would have happened. The interview for this job was kind of really unique in that it lasted for 3 days. We come in on day one and they say, "Okay, we're going to teach you two modules, and you're going to come back and we're going to have you present that module." So afternoon of day one, they present the first module. You come back the morning of day two and you pick a number out of a hat. And whatever number you are, when your number comes up, whatever slide is up on the screen, that's where you start. So you had to memorize this entire module because you had no idea where you were going to start or finish. You just talked for 10 minutes. Did that. Day two, you presented the second module piece of that as well. 49 people that were interviewing for 9 positions, and I was fortunate enough to get one. But that one interaction with a connection of mine led me to at least another small term gig. Because I was unemployed for an entirety of 9 months when I transitioned out of the Navy. And again, rough 9 months, but these small little things that I was able to do pulled me out of the dark spaces that I was in, because it was an extremely difficult time for myself and my family. This job that I got with Convergent, unfortunately, took me away to San Francisco for 2 weeks and Guam for 4 weeks. So I was immediately away from my family for 6 weeks because I flew directly from San Francisco to Guam to help them with their training down there. Uh, Kind of a cool experience. Did a lot of diving, which was great. Guam's a phenomenal place to go scuba diving if you're into that. But I got back from that role. I went right to the offices at Convergent, and they said, "You're one of our best facilitators. We want to keep you on, and work's coming." And I'm like, "Awesome. Call me." A couple of weeks ago by, I called them. "Yep, work's coming." And that's all I got was "Work's coming, work's coming, work's coming." Well, work's coming doesn't put food on the table. So kind of had to think of a few more things to do and was in Joseph A. Bank one day. The lady that was helping me said, we're kind of got in a conversation, and she's like, have you ever heard of a program called Prep Connect 360? And I said, no. And she said, well, it's a 5 day seminar, free to veterans. I think you should go. And most people have heard of TAP, or the Transition Assistance Program, that all military members have to go through. Well, Prep Connect was kind of TAP on steroids. And so I went, and Nanette Mueller, a retired Army colonel, was the woman that ran this program. And she always liked to say, once you go through my program, you will become one of my minions. So we were all Nanette's minions once we went through the program. And Nanette and I just kind of hit it off during that week. And she invited me to come back and be part of her grad panel, where we would come in on Monday afternoons, the opening day, and kind of explain how our transition was going and what we did wrong, what we did right. Um, and through just a series of events, for some reason, my story began to take over the entire grad panel. And Nanette asked me if I could come and be their Friday afternoon closer. So I went from having about 5 minutes with my fellow veterans to having about 45 minutes with my fellow veterans, where I could tell my story and I could be very open and honest and just tell them what it is. And again, the hardest thing that they had to hear was, you're not special. While you may be unique and you have your own gifts to bring, you're not special. And until you get out there and start meeting people and putting yourself out there and going to network events and drop your elevator pitch and just talk to me like you're a human being, that's when things will start to happen. And when I would go to these networking events, meeting these veterans that were going through the program, they would come up to me and start their elevator pitch. And I would stop them and I go, no, just talk to me. And they would be like, what? What? We've been told the whole this time we have to have our elevator pitch. Yeah, you have to have it, but have it in a way that you can deliver it like you don't want something from me. I'm going to get to know you. And if I want to hire you, I have to know, like, and trust you. And if I don't have those three things, how am I going to sit next to you on an airplane for 4 hours? And again, it's a hard reality because they've been told so many times they have to have this elevator pitch. And I think it's just kind of an anomaly that really doesn't need to be there. You just need to have a conversation. Makes it much simpler. So we go through, and then one of my friends, a really good friend of mine, Don Etzel, reached out to me, kind of out of the blue. We used to be in this bunco group together, so we'd get together once a month and roll dice and have some wine. And so Don sits me down and he said, I got a question for you. I said, yeah, what's up? It's like, how would you like to come work for Lockheed Martin? I'm like, uh, sure. I'm like, Don, I don't even know what you do, Don. So what do you, I'm not an engineer. How am I going to work for a company like Lockheed Martin? And he said, well, I know what you did at the Air Force Academy. I'm getting ready to hire a bunch of college students. And I really think that having your mentorship for these new kids could be very instrumental in my organization. And if you're interested, I'd like to bring you on board. And I said, okay, what do you need from me? And he said, well, I need your resume because I'm getting ready to write the job description for you. And I need to make sure that your resume matches the job description. So have you ever heard of the candidate application tracking system? The candidate application tracking system looks for keywords in your resume. And if they don't match, your resume never sees human eyes. So when Don got my resume and he wrote my job description, he put that into the system. He told me to go in and apply for this job. And shockingly, when I did, it was a 100% match. And I got the interview and I landed with Lockheed. And I was there for about 5.5 years. Really great. I got to do about 7 different leadership development programs with them, facilitating them for the organization, from people walking in the door all the way up to, I, as a lower associate manager, was leading a leadership development program for vice presidents at Lockheed Martin, teaching them how to lead in their organization. That's a humbling experience. When you are one of the most junior people in the room and you're coaching and leading some of the highest people in the organization. Really enjoyed it. I got to launch 5 GPS 3 satellites into the new constellation system. So I personally made your life 3 times more accurate. You're welcome. And I did that and really enjoyed it. But then the guy that I would constantly call at Convergent Performance called me one day and he said, "Hey, I got this new job. I'm the VP of a company called Air Methods. I've got a position for you I think you might be interested in." And I said, "Awesome. What is it?" And so he laid out the job for me. And so I went in and I applied for this position, interviewed. When it came time to interview with the SVP of safety, I walked into his office after 2 other conversations and he said, "The job's yours. What questions do you have?" And so I was the senior director of regional safety for an organization called Air Methods, which is the nation's largest air ambulance service with 285 locations, a fleet of 400 aircraft. And I loved that job, loved it. And people always go, "How can you? You've had a career in the military. You did all these other amazing things. You flew helicopters. How can you love a civilian job?" And my answer would always be because at this very second, somewhere in this nation, my company is saving a life, or maybe two, or maybe three, every second of every day. And I loved that job. Unfortunately, on April 14th of last year, I had one of those great conversations where you walk into your boss's office and the VP of HR is sitting there as well. And I was told my position was eliminated to pack up my office and go home. No notice, totally blindsided me. And it was brutal. A lot of people, I think, when they get let go of a position, they kind of take a kick to the ego. I took a punch to the heart because again, I loved that job. Um, but here's the crazy part of my whole fourth quarter of my professional career. Um, when I retired from the Navy, I was out of work for 9 months until I landed my job with Lockheed. Again, little things here and there, coaching and a little gig with Convergent, but nothing permanent. Um, and it's been now 9 months since I lost my job at Air Methods. And I jokingly say I didn't lose it. I know exactly where it is. It's just somebody else is doing it. Uh, um, I may have a phone call here in an hour and a half. It's either going to be an offer or it's going to be we went with the other candidate. One of the two. I had an amazing interview yesterday with the CEO and the entire leadership team. Uh, Thanks to some phenomenal coaching with Sonia last week. She gave me some great advice. And so we'll see. I may be employed again here in an hour and a half. We'll see how it goes. But the one of the other things that I wanted to tell folks is the networking piece is so huge, and that's why I love this group at Achieve is everybody's willing to have a conversation with anybody. In October, I got to talk to Phyllis, and I got to talk to Oliver, and I got to talk to Kathy, and I got to talk to Mac, and I got to talk to Ark, and I got to talk to Sonia, and it was just an amazing, very quick 2 days, but just incredible. And that was the other thing that I would tell these veterans all the time is never turn down a conversation with anybody because you don't know who they are and who they know. I'm like, if you're standing in line at a coffee shop, buy the person behind you their coffee. Just because they're in jeans and a t-shirt, they very well could be a CEO of a large organization. You don't know until you talk to them. And some of you may or may not know, I have a doctorate in education. I was dumb enough to go all the way to as far as you can go in the education space. But I got there, ironically enough, because I opened the door to a conversation. And I know that sounds crazy, but here's the backstory. So I had gotten my MBA and I decided I was going to go get a doctorate. Part of the reason for that was, again, I was teaching at the Air Force Academy. The goal was I get my doctorate, I'd be able to stay on and teach there. Well, if you know anything about the doctoral process, you have to submit your proposal in order to conduct your research to write the second or the last two chapters of your dissertation. So I submitted my first proposal and it was rejected with, I think it was like 15 comments, which I expected. I didn't expect to get my proposal approved the first time. So, like a good service officer, I wrote up a comment resolution matrix and I resolved all my comments and I submitted again. I got denied again, but I got 9 comments. And I'm like, well, I got progress. That's good. So resolved all the comments. I submitted for the third time and I was denied the third time, receiving back 20 comments on stuff that hadn't changed since my first submission. And I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I've been working at this for 4.5 years. This is never going to end. My GI Bill was exhausted. $25,000 was exhausted. And I was nowhere closer to my doctorate than I was when I started, except for I had completed all my classes. I was affectionately called ABD, all but dissertation. And I was okay with staying there. I get an invitation on LinkedIn one day from a guy, and I look at his profile, and he is the director of the Denver campus for University of Phoenix. So I wrote him back, and I said, Jeffrey, I am reluctant to accept your invitation, not because of who you are, but who you work for, and here's why. And I began to explain to him how his university had screwed me over. And he's like, can we talk? And I said, sure. I'm going to tell you how to fix your university because it's broken. His going in was he brought the director of operations for the entire university, his assistant director of the campus in Denver, and Scott Burris, who would later become my dissertation chair. And they came into the conversation having read my proposal already and told me that there's something there that I need to finish and they want me to come back. And I said, okay, I'm going to think about it. And they said, great, we'll call you next week. So I talked to a bunch of my mentors. What am I going to do? How am I going to finish this? I really don't want to do it, but I want to do it because I want those stupid little 3 letters at the end of my name. And so my boss at the Center for Character and Leadership Development said, what's your line in the sand? And I said, my line in the sand is I'm not going to give him another dime. He said, great, tell him that. So I did. And they said, okay, can we have a week? And I said, absolutely. You guys gave me a week. I'm happy to give you a week. So we have another conversation the following week. And they said, here's the deal. The program that you're currently in will expire on July 7th of next year. If you can get your dissertation done by then, it's completely tuition free. You have a full ride scholarship to finish your doctorate. And I said, okay, I'm either going to be done on July 7th or I'm done on July 7th, one of the two ways. Uh, I defended the day before that deadline and then was the commencement speaker for my doctoral graduation in Las Vegas, which was phenomenal. One of the largest audience I've had the opportunity to speak in front of. It was about 8,000 people because there were about 1,500 graduates and all of their family and friends surrounded in this big arena in Vegas. And while delivering my comments to my fellow graduates was great, having people in the audience come up and talk to me afterwards and say how I impacted them with one part of my speech or another was just amazing. And I never would be where I am today had I turned down a conversation. If you look at my coaching, if you look at the job with Convergent, if you look at my job with Lockheed, my job with Air Methods, all of that is because I opened myself to a conversation. I put myself out there. I started networking with people. And that's what makes the transition easier. And it's hard, I think, for a lot of veterans when you have been successful because you're used to success. Success automatically kind of comes to you most times if you just do what you're told to do and you do your job. That's completely different in the civilian world. My son, who works for the Department of Navy in Washington, gets infuriated when he walks past a desk with a guy with his feet up on the desk that's been there for 20 years and collects a paycheck every 2 weeks. Where my son is coding his butt off to make less money. And I'm like, bud, that's a civilian world. Sometimes it happens. But for those of us who show up on time in the right uniform of the day in the civilian world, and do our and roll up our sleeves and do our job will make you so much more successful than just sitting back and waiting for success to come your way. Now you've got to work for it. And hopefully in an hour and 24 minutes, I'll have that opportunity to work for it again. Um, but yeah, again, Mac, thank you for the offer to come and talk to this amazing group. And Phyllis, it's great to see you again as well. I appreciate your little sparklies that went up a bit ago for me. It's great to see you all, and I hope to get back to an Achieve event sometime soon, so I can again be able to collaborate and with you all again. So thank you, Mac.
Oh, absolutely. We probably could have done 5 hours of this. Uh, yeah, yeah, some of the stuff that I heard, I'm going to open it up for questions. Um, what I recognize, you had all these, what I would call training, job descriptions. In the civilian world, people talk about certifications. Phyllis actually does a certification program. And that, did you have difficulty translating the military jargon of what your expertise was into the civilian understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, TAP tries to do that. And it's a Department of Labor program that honestly is 2 days of a waste of time, but everybody has to do it. So if you can find different programs, unfortunately, Prep Connect is no longer in existence here in the spring, but there's Hire Our Heroes. There's all sorts of other great organizations that can help folks. Sonia, is a great resource because I would actually review resumes for folks in Prep Connect, and they're filled with, I was a blah blah, all this acronym and military jargon and everything else. And I'm like, I'm not an army guy. I don't understand a single thing that's on your resume. And again, that's one of those hard things, I think, for those of us that have worn our nation's cloth for 2 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever the case may be. We know what that language is. And there's ways to do it. I mean, now with AI and everything else, you could probably just throw your resume in there and say, make it a civilian resume. But learning the language of corporate America is a key thing, and understanding those candidate application tracking systems that look for the keywords and being able to look at the job description and be able to write your resume so that those keywords match is so helpful. Yeah, Oliver.
Um,
Nope.
what about
Okay.
negative stereotypes from military? I'm trying to remember the officers or ranking. You said '05. Was that
Yeah,
captain?
I was a
What
commander.
commander? Okay.
Yep.
Uh, I had a tough enough time remembering the Marine Corps once. Uh, but did you find that people said, "Oh, he's arrogant. He was a pilot." We think of Tom Cruise and Top Gun and stuff like that. Did you deal with that in the civilian world, or did people pretty much say, "Okay, he has a resume. He probably knows how to lead, and he's going to do the job"? What was that
Uh,
like?
yeah, I didn't personally face any of that. Again, the first little small gig working with United Airlines, they were about 50-50 former military or folks that grew up in the civilian world flying. And then with Lockheed, very heavy veteran population at Lockheed Martin as well. But I think there is an expectation for folks who do make '05 and '06. Certainly, if you're war stars on your collar, that there's a different expectation for that. I think on the enlisted side, if you were a retired E7, E8, E9, there is an expectation along with that you know how to lead, you know the right and wrong thing to do, um, and in no way implying that an E4 doesn't know the right thing to do. Um, I think it's just different, and I think you're looked at. differently when you made it to that echelon in the ranks, enlisted or officer. But you have to be able to back that up. Um, just because you made it there doesn't mean that you've still got it. And again, you have to show up on time. You got to do the job. Um, but yeah, I didn't really see any biases towards me personally.
Any other questions for Scott while we have him on the line here? Sonia.
Kathy,
Oh,
I saw Kathy's hand go first.
okay. Kathy, we're gonna let Scott lead this.
He's the boss of the applesauce.
That's right.
So, one of the things that I really liked about what you said, and I think we, regardless of our background, it's nice to have someone tell us what's your line in the sand. Like
Hmm.
whenever you're facing a challenge, an opportunity, whatever it is getting clear as to what is the line in the sand. What are you willing
Hmm.
to do? Where's your boundary? And
Hmm.
you then going, okay, this is what it is, sharing that information, and then them saying, let us think about it. Here's what we offer, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that we can, at the end of the day, we can really get what we want and maintain our boundaries. So I
Hmm.
love how you phrase that as what's the line in the sand. And sometimes it's nice to have other people say, you're struggling this with this. What do you really
Yeah.
want? What's the line
Right.
in the sand? So I love that part of the story.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Kathy.
Sonia.
Sonia.
Um, One of the lines that you mentioned, I don't know if you realize, but the when you said the fourth quarter of my career,
That was
I think
purposeful.
I think that's a book title. I think you've got a book right there. That could be your book title with your story. But when I heard that, I'm like, oh, I hear
Yeah.
things sometimes and oh, that'd be a good country music song, or that'd be.
Yeah.
But I heard that, I thought that would be a good thing. And then, and also the transition assistance program. You're right. I've worked with veterans all around the world for the last 6 years
Hmm.
with Hire Heroes, and that transition assistance program is not written by professionals on the outside. It's
Yeah.
being taught by the military on the inside who've never been possibly out on the corporate world or that
Right.
space. So um, it's like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah. Like a professional educator teaching
Yeah.
you what it's like in corporate America.
But I've got a program in the works. It's a veteran transition life coaching certification program that
Awesome.
will be certified through the ICF, and I'm going to be getting it on the Department of Defense, the education platform. But that's in the works for this year.
Awesome. Yeah.
Scott,
They need something. Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
I would like you to make sure you put your contact information in the chat.
Yeah.
In that I'm going to step back just for a second. Um, all of you have seen me hand out the retired stars in that. And the interesting part is Sonia first introduced me to them. And through a totally different source, I met Susan Wells, who's on here today. She is the founder of Stars for
Yes.
Our Troops. So it's kind of unique. I have both the ladies that introduced me to what I love doing. There we go.
I used to have mine on my desk. I got to find it. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
Take a picture, Mac, of all of us holding our stars.
yeah.
Take a picture.
I got to unblur my background so it shows up. Oh, that's a little better.
Lovely.
So, Susan, thank you for coming in. And that it's nice seeing your smiley face. And that
Thank you.
um,
It's lovely to have others showing me their stars rather than me having to put my star up and say, does anyone know what this is?
Well, interesting enough, Phyllis, who is here, will be the next flag that you're getting from me. It's going in the mail today. I've had it on my get it done bench for about a month now, and I'd actually just mailed the other ones off to you, so you have another one on its way to you. So it's a great organization, and I highly recommend participating in it. So. Any other questions? Sonia, you have your conference in 3 weeks, I think it is.
Yeah, 3 weeks, February 5th or 6th and 7th.
Yeah,
Um,
in
the
Tampa.
We've got our business explosion tampa.com. It's got all the information about our speakers. We're gonna have 20 speakers, 10 workshops, a veterans empower hour on Saturday afternoon that I'll be facilitating with a veterans panel and an honor ceremony. And then get your VIP ticket. If you have anybody in Tampa, please, please, please refer them to businessexplosiontampa.com. We'd love to have them and host them. Yesterday, I think I told you that we were at 270. Now we're at 285.
Nice.
So we're super excited. And then we have our Connect and Collaborate tonight in Tampa at 7 p.m. And so if you know anyone in Tampa that wants to come and meet us, we'll be at the Glory Days on Dale Mabry in Tampa at 7 p.m.
And it's almost warmer in Tampa than it is in Denver.
I don't even know what the temperature is today. I know yesterday it's 69 degrees right now. So what's your temperature there?
Um, in Evergreen, we're supposed to be at about 50. Denver's normally about 10 degrees warmer.
Cool.
Yeah, 48 in the Springs.
Yeah. uh, any other questions for Scott while we have him on the call today?
I just want to say, Scott, you're phenomenal.
Thank you.
I loved your story, and thank you for being here. And thank you, Mac, again for having the space for veterans to come on and for us supporters to be able to be here to support you. And I love it. And I think, Scott, you're going to be getting a ring a ding ding really, really soon with good news.
Well, the Veterans Achieve Business Systems.com website is up, and we're posting a lot of the activities that we're doing. The Veterans A.B.S. YouTube channel is up where you can see all of the recordings for all of our previous speakers, and we'll be loading the new ones. Scott, you should be up in a couple days on the YouTube channel.
Great. Thanks, Mac.
Next week, we're going to have my VA, Fabienne. I can never say her last name, it's way too difficult. Out of Jupiter, Florida, speaking on VA and awesome administrative assistance, which we're all small business people. It may be a value for all of us to look at using her services. And I'm always looking for speakers. I think I'm booked now through February, but we're going to continue this. And anybody that has an offer, and Steve and Arca, you're on my hit list to get you guys to speak directly. And Maggie. Uh, Kathy's gonna sit there instead of it just being a prod with a stick, it's gonna be a branding iron. Get out there and talk, girl. Uh, so love you all, and I'm gonna end this, and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Thanks again, Mac.
Bye.
Thank you, Scott.